This is the Almost Timely newsletter for the week of November 6th, 2022. What's on my mind this week? A question about how good is your design? I just got back from delivering the opening keynote at HeapCon, a developer conference in Belgrade, Serbia, which was a fantastic trip, by the way. It was a really, really fun group of people, interesting, different crowd than I usually speak to, but we'll talk about that another time. I enjoy traveling. Well, let me be clear. I enjoy visiting new places. Getting there, the process of getting there, not so much. But the reason I spoke at HeapCon was because I like visiting new places, new nations, etc. And I've never been to Serbia before, so I figured, why not? It would be a good experience. And it's not often that you get paid to go someplace and see things. As much as I love, machines and technology and AI, it's people that power marketing. And the best way to learn about people is to be with people, right? And to observe them. So Serbia, if you are unfamiliar, is a country in the Balkans, Southern Europe. If you're looking at a map of Europe, go to the right of Italy, like just go right of Italy. You'll cross the Adriatic Sea, and you'll run into a collection of countries: Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Kosovo. If you slept through social studies in the 1990s, this collection of nations used to be a single nation. It used to be called the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, I think it was called, or something along those lines. But Yugoslavia was the name that most of us in the West knew it by. And then it split up and then became a bunch of new countries. What's unique about Serbia is that, unlike all of its neighbors, it retained the use of Cyrillic as the primary alphabet for normal usage. Most of its neighbors, like Bosnia and Croatia and Montenegro, use the Latin alphabet, which is the character set that my newsletter is written in. What you read when you're reading my newsletter. So Serbians would write their country name very differently using Cyrillic, because Cyrillic is a combination of Roman and Greek letters. And obviously in Latin it's written, those same letters actually written differently. So we spell it in American English Serbia, but if you transliterated the actual Cyrillic characters, it would be Srbija, because the J is pronounced like a Y. So what? Why is this? Why are we talking about this? Well, I'm not especially good at reading Cyrillic. It's not a language set, a character set that I use very often. I'm better than I used to be, because I've consumed a lot of news this year about Ukraine and the Ukrainian resistance to the Russian invasion, and much of it from the source, Ukrainians, my friends who actually live and work there, which means having to struggle through reading Cyrillic characters to at least sound out the words that I'm seeing, especially on media that doesn't have translation. What that means is that when I visited Serbia, reading all the signs and content, I struggled. It's not second nature. I'm like, that symbol is pronounced like a PH and stuff. I feel like a 6-year-old trying to sound out words from letters. When I visited Montenegro earlier this year, I didn't have that problem. I used the Latin character set. A shop, it was labeled Apoteka, was a pharmacy, and if you know Greek and Roman words, you can figure out that's the same root term as apothecary, so it's a pharmacy. Seeing that same sign written in Cyrillic, I was like, that the pi symbol, the pi letter is P, and the Ka is still pronounced the same, but like a B is pronounced as a V, etc. So it was an additional hurdle. But that gave me a rare opportunity, an opportunity to rely on design cues for navigation rather than the literal words. Take a look at this city street. Now, without a word of the language, can you understand the basics? Can you see what's going on? You can see, the speed that you're supposed to be going. Remember, it's kilometers per hour, because the rest of the world uses metric. What direction is the traffic supposed to be going? You see where you're supposed to park. You see what to look out for. There's a little kids running sign. There are so many design cues embedded in the context of daily life that are the same in many nations, that if you were dropped onto this street like this with no translation software, you were beamed there like on Star Trek, you could probably still figure out what's what for the most part. You might not be able to communicate with people, and you might not know the specifics of what's on the newspaper headlines, but you pretty much know, where you should and should not stand, for example. You can navigate. Here's another example. This is the interior of a store. Do you understand the general idea of the store? Do you understand what it sells? How much Serbian do you need to understand to know what you're looking at? Right? It's pretty apparent, right? By the way, it's a fun fact. The store's name is called Women's Secret. I guess it's a play on Victoria's Secret. I would assume that you don't need to know a whole lot of Serbian to understand what you're looking at, right? It's fairly apparent what the store is, what they sell, and that lots of stuff is on a 30% off sale. Now, you could probably, without saying a word, without understanding what somebody was saying, as long as you had the local currency, which is the Serbian dinar, you could probably successfully buy something and engage in a transaction just from the design cues. You take the thing off the rack, you look at the numbers, the number of dinars, you go to the cash register, you hand them, a 1,000 dinar bill, or several of them, and you walk out with your purchase. Right? That would be enabling commerce with the design cues. There's very little you needed to do to understand how to do business. The reality is there are only so many ways to do things like commerce, navigation, buildings, stairs, toilets. There's only so many ways to do those things in daily life that are rational, that make sense, and that will help people accomplish the tasks in front of them, right? You don't need to know what the language is to understand how a toilet works, right? They're pretty much the same in most parts of the world. Even with language as a barrier, those commonalities make life easy to navigate and create shared cultural connections. Now take a look at this. What kind of website is this? Without understanding a word of the language or even understanding the characters being used, can you tell? It is, of course, a news website. This is Novosti. This is a Serbian news site. How did you know what it was? Right? If you looked at it and go, that's a news site. How did you know? If you don't read Cyrillic or you don't understand the Serbian language, how did you know? Because there's enough design cues and layout cues that you've seen from other sites that make determining that this is a news site. Make it determining pretty apparent, right? It's a news site. Do you know what the news is about? Not necessarily, but there's pictures of people and flags and some guy playing tennis and stuff. So even that, you can get a sense. There's a big old ad right up top here because that's news sites for you these days. But this is the power of good design. Good design, yes, is fresh and unique, but also invokes enough cues and commonalities that somebody with little to no idea of the context of the language at least knows what they're looking at. So, here's the big question for you. When it comes to your marketing, your content, your communications, how good is your marketing? If it was in another language, a language you didn't speak, a language you didn't understand, could somebody still navigate to the important parts? Do you have enough familiar design cues that make your marketing content intuitive? Suppose the Almost Timely newsletter looked like this, right? Without being able to read Cyrillic or Serbian, and I apologize for any of my friends who, especially new friends from HeapCon, this is Google Translate, so if it says something accidentally offensive, I apologize. I didn't write this by hand. But can you tell in general what this is? Yeah, it looks like a blog, right? It has this sense of a blog. Can you tell what you're supposed to do on there? Well, there's a big old YouTube video in the middle, right? That's the YouTube frame. You can see along the side the yellow calls to action. That's pretty apparent. I want you to click on those things. It may not be clear what it is you're clicking on, but it's pretty clear from the design cues. That's the important thing on the page. But you know what really stands out to me? The emoji. The emoji are symbols. They're miniature images, right? And those little images convey meaning without language needed. There's a little TV by the YouTube link. There's a little pair of headphones by the MP3 link. It's apparent what those are, and from the context, you can tell they're links. You're probably going to be taken to a video or an audio file, right? Those little tiny cues are enough to help you understand the context of what the language says, even if you don't understand the words. Try this test on your own content, on your own website, whatever. Google Translate. I did this in Google Translate. Allows you to put in the URL of a website and translate it. So do that, but translate it to a language you don't understand at all. Pick Swahili or Danish or Chinese or Serbian. Pick a language you have no reference, no frame of reference. You can't even make out what it's saying. Urdu. And see how much your design still helps someone navigate and get a sense of what the site is, what it's about, and what they're supposed to be doing, what you want them to be doing. If you do that with your site and you can still get a sense of what it's about, you've got good design. You've got enough design cues to help somebody at least go the right direction, right? On the other hand, if you do that in your website, you're like, huh? Like, a site doesn't even make sense. Then you're over-relying on language and not enough on design cues. And this isn't important just for international audiences. Audiences aren't your own. This is also important for folks like who are neurodivergent, right? Who may be dyslexic. They may not be able to process language as easily. And if you have the right design cues that you can function on this site with minimal reliance on language, then those folks will be enabled for commerce as well. Just remember that not to use images too much, again, without accommodations for folks who are using like screen readers. So you want to make sure that you've got all the boxes checked for accessibility. But do that language test, right? Go to Google Translate, translate your website, see how apparent it is. You can even tell what the website is about, right? If you look at the website and you're like, is this an e-commerce site? Is it a blog? What kind of site is it? If you're not sure, you need some new design cues. All right, what else is in this week's newsletter? In case you missed it, in addition to, of course, flogging the Google Analytics 4 course, I did a bunch of videos this week before I left for Serbia, one of which was on beware of offering blanket trust to thought leaders. This is something that's been on my mind a lot recently. Watch it and watch the warnings for it. We also have stuff on whether hardware or software matters more for audio quality, why AI generation tools are like vodka, and whether you're giving a cooking class or a kitchen tour. Also this week, had a lot of fun doing our weekly So What live stream. I was tuning in remotely from Serbia, so the audio quality from my mic wasn't that great, but the show content was good, so go check that out. In jobs this week, we have, a ton. Content marketing manager at Worlder, CRO web analyst at Sonoma Media Finland, data analyst at Next After, data scientist at Taurus Research, data tracking and measurement specialist at Bienkorf, Director of Data Sciences at AARP, football data scientist at Manchester United. If you are a soccer fan, we call it soccer in the USA, but everyone else on the planet calls it football, that'd be a heck of a job. Manchester United is a very well-known team. Freelance front-end HubSpot web developer Community Co. Head of data products at Rural Innovation Strategies. HubSpot developer Bridges. Lead data scientist at Nestle. Marketing analytics manager at AARP. Public analytics at... I don't know how to pronounce that. Regional planning data analyst at Metropolitan Area Planning Council. Senior director of customer insights at Shutterfly. Software engineer at Posit, which is the company formerly known as RStudio. And technical product trainer at AdSwerve. So lots and lots of positions open this week. Lots of new stuff. Be sure to check out the private social media study. Got that going. I'm actually working on the book version of that now. In other news, why storytelling is important for social media from Agorapulse. Meta responds to its next threat, apps that link Instagram influencers and superfans. Hint, it's private social media communities like Discord. YouTube has introduced a TikTok and Twitch co-streaming feature. Clearly seeing the signs there. How to come up with new ideas for SEO tests and user experience signals. We have new AI advances increase user reach with advanced targeting and introduction to nature-inspired optimization algorithms. IBM named a leader in the 2022 Gartner Magic Quadrant for data quality solutions. And then in the dealer's choice, there's this one article that's really important that I'm going to put in my pandemic newsletter, but bears mentioning here. It's a study called Co-Infection by Influenza A Virus and Respiratory Syncytial RSV produces hybrid virus particles in Nature, Nature Microbiology magazine. This is a big deal because Flu and RSV are two viruses that are circulating right now fairly heavily. They took a couple of years off thanks to masks and stuff from COVID, and now they're back. They're having babies. They're having babies. They're hybrid virus particles because these two are genetically compatible. Like COVID and flu, not compatible. It'd be like trying to get a donkey to mate with a dolphin. It wouldn't work. It sounds similar words, but not at all the same thing. Flu, influenza, and RSV, they are compatible and they're breeding together. So, yeah, keep wearing that mask. I certainly am. Upcoming events, SMPS in Las Vegas, and then I think it's going to start winding down, maybe, for the remainder of the year, which is good because I've got a ton of video to process and got updates to make some of our courses and things. So it's going to be a busy winter season. That is the news for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching or reading or listening or however you get the news. I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Stay safe. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.